Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Finish More Music podcast. So from time to time, it is inevitable that we are forced to take time away from our regular creative sessions. And this can be due to things like holidays and vacations. It's a particular reason why I've decided to record this podcast now. A lot of people are coming back or recently back from their holidays, but it could also be to things like ill health, unfortunately, or work. If there's a big project that you're working on, or if you're a student and you've got your exams coming up, or other significant life events. Maybe you're getting married, the birth of a child, moving home, moving country, like Anna and I have just done, for example. When these things happen, they're going to pull us away inevitably from our regular creative sessions. And nobody wants to come back from a break and struggle to get started with their music, for the break from their creativity to be any longer than is absolutely necessary. And yet, I have noticed that so many people end up dragging it out when they do have the opportunity to get started with their music again. And in my experience, this often comes down to not having a well-defined, repeatable and reliable first step. Said another way, not having a ticket back into writing your music. And if you have that, what you're going to find is that you'll be able to readily drop back into the habit, into your creative habit with minimal resistance whenever life derails you from your music. Now, on the flip side, if you don't have that reliable first step and it's a hit and hope strategy, it's hoping for the best, then more often than not, you really are going to struggle to get back into that rhythm that you had when you left. And days so often turn into weeks, and then for some people turn into months until they get started again. Now, this is really interesting because when you look into this, you'll find there have been surveys that have been done on things like this. And on average, it takes people 3 days to fall back into a regular routine in their life in general, with just 1 week away, and 4 days for 2 weeks away. And that is a cycle that we're talking about with things like work, stuff that's kind of enforced. And for a lot of people, their creativity isn't enforced by having to go out and having an employer and all of those things. So often it drags longer. And the science tells us that this is due to a change in routines. And of course, when you're on vacation, getting up later, like chilling out at the beach, not really thinking very much, there's a very different way of thinking, a different mindset. So we got to snap back into that. And the same, of course, is of illness, could just be laying around all day. If it's stress, that you've got a big kind of work project on, and maybe you're tired and you're stressed and you're getting back late, and so your sleeping routine gets knocked out of its pattern. You tend to sleep in more to recover, and then you're flying out the door with a cup of coffee and a piece of toast to get back to work for the project. So it makes perfect sense that we've got to re-divert back to a routine that was serving us well previously. And then in addition to that, we experience a resistance, and that's a mental resistance. And this is often sort of, we see this materialize in our lives with the P word, procrastination. And this is because our brains function in such a way that they pick the easiest perceived route to take in anything we're doing in order to conserve energy. And so if the routine that we've set up, or the things that we've been doing have now become the new habit, if you like, the brain is going to want to take us down that path more than it's going to want us to snap back into writing music again and into our routines that we want to rebuild. Now, here's something interesting about this. We dug up in the New York Times. Not only do we avoid the tasks we dread, we also put off activities that we enjoy. So even though you might love writing music, maybe you've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with it at the moment if it isn't going well. Maybe it's something you absolutely love doing. Same deal. We'll also put things off that we enjoy. And a part of this, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is being faced with an ill-defined task. So that's to say there isn't a clear, repeatable, reliable, defined first step. If there isn't, then we find it easier to ignore getting back into this than to actually figure out what's the first step again, what have I got to do. We'll literally just ignore it. We won't even wrestle with it. And as a result, it takes shockingly little to derail us into full on procrastination. And maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you find yourself keep delaying until there's some imagined ideal time. You're like, this is going to be quite hard to get back into this. I can't remember how to do it. I'm not sure where I'm going to start with this. And it keeps getting put off. God, I need a big block of time. Maybe I'll wait until the weekend. And then, of course, other commitments come up, life happens, and the can keeps getting kicked further and further down the road. And the bigger the gap, as you saw, the longer the time away, the more days it takes someone to get back into something that's enforced, pretty much back into their full routine. The longer you're away, the more time there is for resistance to build up. That classic, I always think of Christmas. Like, that's a classic time. If you're not going through this now, most people really struggle. And I'm sure you can relate to this, where you've had an amazing Christmas break, maybe a bit of a boozy one, party season, and then coming back out the other side of that and getting the wheels back on, the discipline back on, and building up the habit. So, because these things happen quite a lot, we posed this question inside of Finish More Music, inside of my signature program. And we asked our members, what are your tips and your strategies? Let's brainstorm this so that everybody's got, a clearly defined and reliable first step that they can lean into. And unsurprisingly, love the guys and girls to bits in the community, super smart bunch. They shared a whole bunch of amazing tips. And I think I could probably group them into, 9 or 10 in total, but I've grabbed 3 for this episode to avoid choice overload. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you'll know that's a throwback to the last episode. Too many choices mean that people take absolutely none at all. So I've got 3 of these, and then I've added one in myself, which I think is super useful, that you might want to get on your list. So the first one came from Matt McGranagan, and Matt said, go back to the first stages of Ignite. Resistance is normal, but once you get back into your routine again, it snowballs. So there's 2 things to just expand on here. First and foremost is to know and be aware of, all I got to do is get over this first hump. Just deal with this first step, and then it will snowball. It will pick up surprisingly quickly where you left off. It is just this first step. And then, of course, the second bit is go back to the first stages of Ignite. Now, if you're not a member of FMM, you'll be like, what the heck is that? So Ignite is a training track inside of the program that is designed to literally ignite your creativity. So whether you're someone who's struggled to finish music forever, or whether it's a member of FMM who's taken a break away or fallen off the wagon, it happens to everyone. And members continually go back to the training track and go through it because it quickly gets you back up to speed, back into your creative routine. It's a refresher on the creative process, which I refer to in FMM as like the base of the tower. And a lot of people don't have this. They don't have a reliable creative process, and so they start building up, watch loads of YouTube tutorials, get excited about something, and then if you don't have a reliable base on a building, right, the building will fall down, and particularly with a tower. So they get a little way along, and then their entire process and writing music comes crashing back down to the ground again. And that's because there isn't this reliable base. And so that's what we have built into FMM. And so if you're not an FMM member, this tip is still very, very relevant. It's ensuring that you have a repeatable and reliable creative process in place. So you have this defined process that you can return back to. You can look at it and say, I know exactly how I write music. I've got the mindset in place. I know all of the steps. I've got the first, second, third, almost like a recipe that I can follow to get back into my creativity. And you know that you've got that bedrock there in place every time. So the second tip was from Mark Allen, a name that might be familiar to you now because we interviewed him way back in episode number 82. So I say way back, probably about a year ago now. And Mark is absolutely flying since then. The episode, I strongly recommend checking it out because he shared his creative process, how he transitions into creative flow, how you can build your belief up as a creative. And since then, like, Mark is kicking on and on and on. He's now running his own label, Lundam. He's running gigs and parties in London. He's playing live sets as well as he was back then, releasing on top labels. So absolutely killing it. And his tip was, and I love this, I start from a place of joy. And ask the question, what would be the most fun thing to work on? And there's a really good question in there. What do you like doing the most? And I think we often have a belief that we have to go straight back in to like the full gamut of everything we were doing. I've got to pick up exactly where I left off on whatever could be the most challenging piece of the puzzle. And if I'm not doing that and I'm not coming back at it at full steam, then I'm in some way going to be wasting time by doing something that's fun instead. But often, as we've discussed, days can turn into weeks, can turn into months if we're making that first step a big hurdle. If it feels like it's big and difficult to challenge, we're trying to kind of wrestle this thing to the ground. Whereas if you took just a couple of days, just a couple of sessions of doing something that's fun, that lights you up, well, that's just a few days versus potentially weeks. And chances are, in those fun sessions, you'll have come up with something, whether it's a piece of the puzzle to start a track, or maybe you love doing the arrangement and you've started with some breakdowns or something in your other tracks. Chances are you've moved yourself along as well. So it's even an illusion that there are any wasted days, because something got built, something happened somewhere along the lines. So I absolutely love that. Start from a place of joy. So we've got, have a creative process that's got clearly defined first steps. We've got starting from a place of joy. And then Araz said something that I think really connected the dots here as well. And he said, don't pressure yourself to jump back into it at full speed. So this is Araz Jakalian. And he said, don't pressure yourself to jump back into it at full speed. Be gentle with yourself. Get back into it slowly with low expectations, but high enjoyment. So it links in really nicely with what Mark said, but there's one phrase in there that I've kind of double underlined, which is be gentle with yourself. If you jump back to episode 30, and this is one of our most popular episodes that I ever recorded. It's called Inner Coach versus Inner Bully, and it is about saving your energy based on how you speak to yourself. So if you're someone who denigrates yourself, you speak, you're really brutal with yourself, that inner voice, that inner bully is really hard on you. I can't believe I haven't got back to this yet. I should have got back to this at full speed, blah, 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 and then that then becomes, oh, I'm such a failure. Oh, I've done this again. I promised myself I'd get back into this and I didn't do it. What a loser. I'm a letdown. I'm not disciplined. All of those stories, it's so easy to start telling ourselves. If we do that, we sap and we drain our energy. And my mindset coach, he said that people who've been through the work, which I'm very fortunate to have been through it with her, which is all about quietening that voice down and instead speaking to ourselves with kindness and compassion, being gentle to ourselves. People who've been through it say that they save about 30% energy by not berating themselves. And this is really powerful because it'd be easy to gloss over this and go, this is a bit of a soft one. It's really not. Imagine your chances of getting back into your routine if you had more energy, more vitality to get into it. If you feel tired, of course, we're going to avoid doing something that might feel like it's a little bit more challenging. Back to the idea of our brain conserving energy and resistance. So be kind to yourself, be supportive to yourself. So those are the three that I grabbed from the community, and thank you very much, gents, for sharing those. The one that I wanted to add, which I find to be incredibly powerful as well, is accountability. Build in accountability. Get yourself paired up, grouped up, whatever it might be, with people who are as dedicated as you. And create accountability. And it may be that you can jump back into this group, or maybe there are other people in the same boat as you, and you can make that connection and hold each other accountable. Now, there is a warning here and a flag to put in the ground, which is select the people that you're going to work with carefully. Because if you are surrounded by undisciplined people, or flakes, we could call them, there's a real danger there. Because that can end up demoralizing you, making you feel like you're wasting more time, getting more off track. Like now I'm trying to be a part of this group and trying to get other people up, and they're kind of letting me down, and that's frustrating me, as well as trying to get back into your music. So make sure that you're surrounded by, this is my best advice with this, people who are as dedicated, on the same path as you, people who are reliable, people who will be there to hold you accountable, and vice versa. And this is something that we're big on inside of FMM. And one of the things that we do that's really, really successful, you might be able to kind of take some value and ideas from here, is we do something we call a 5-5 challenge. Now, this is run by my team, and we take on all the heavy lifting. So we do all of the scheduling, we build the environment out, we send reminders to people, we do all of that side of things, all the admin stuff and the heavy lifting stuff we take care of. And then our members meet online, and we provide them with a creative challenge. So this is something that's got parameters that I've designed, and it's all, as well as it being a lot of fun, and it helps people whether they're getting back on the wagon or not. And it's, you know, designed to help people kind of fly out of the traps towards their goals. We do it every single quarter. We make sure it gets people really motoring and moving. But it could be falling off the wagon, or just, hey, you know, let's get involved with a creative challenge that's going to provide new creative ideas. It's also going to build people's technical skill set, all of those good things. So there's something to kind of get stuck into, but you know there's the process behind it. You know you've got the first step. You know it's guided by a member of our team, and therefore it ticks all of these boxes, right? It is well defined. It is fun. It has accountability built in, and it's a kind and supportive group, which there are no bullies in there, right? It's all inner coach stuff. So we wrap a bow around all of it, and you could build something out like that. And as a result, you can imagine this is a hugely popular thing, and people come out the other side with actual pieces of music and things they're working on and they're lit up about. And you could do exactly the same thing. So in short, I recommend ticking as many of the boxes as we've mentioned here for building out your first step, your ticket back into writing music when you've had any kind of break, whether it's one that you didn't invite into your world, or whether it's one that was by design. If you have that first repeatable, reliable, defined step, you're going to find it significantly easier to get back into your music production, and of course that is going to snowball from there. So I hope that helps. Whether this is one of these episodes that you're like, yeah, you know, I've not been long from back from vacation, or another departure from your routine in your life, and yeah, this is timely, or whether it's something you can scribble down these ideas and start building out that first step for the next time you're away. Whatever it is, I hope you've found this useful, something has resonated with you here. The show notes for this are finishmoremusic.com/195. I do hope that you've enjoyed the show. Until next time, take care and happy music making.